there. Welcome to our next mini series for our podcast for Harvest Women. This series is called Because You Asked, and it is going to be a set of 5 podcasts where we address issues and questions that our women have brought to us. And I'm so excited to invite guests and friends in so that we can just talk through these questions. And I am praying that this is a time where you can hear good, solid biblical answers and maybe know that other women have the same questions that you do. So for our first podcast, we are covering parenting, and I'd love you to meet my 2 friends who are here to do this podcast with me. Can you guys introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Grace, and I'm married to my lovely husband, Christian. We've been married for about 8 years, and we have 3 adorable boys. Our oldest, Carson, is almost 6, and our second is Tucker, and he is 2.5. And then we have a very, very scrumptious 8-month-old who his name is Bennett.
He is scrumptious.
Yes, he is.
And I'm Michelle, and I'm married to Phil, and we have been married for 16 years, and we have 4 boys. They are 13, 10, 9, and 7.
Awesome. And I guess I should say my family too. So I'm married to Brian, and we've been married for 27 years. And we have a 22-year-old who's now out in the workforce, and a 19-year-old who's also in the workforce, and 2 18-year-olds who are at college, and a 15-year-old who's a freshman in high school. So spanning kind of each of us different ages and stages along the way with parenting. So excited to talk through this with y'all.
Me too.
All right, so we're going to just jump into our first question and share as you will. So these are ones that were sent in by our women. So the first one was, how do we handle postpartum depression in a way that honors the Lord? I love the fact that the person asking this has a heart to honor the Lord. I also love the fact that they are not ashamed because this is real. So this is a fantastic, deep, and good question to start with. Grace, what is your experience in the area of postpartum?
So mine kind of varies in different seasons. When we had our second, Tucker, he was a very colicky baby. So he was up a lot at night and just really unsettled. And so that created just a lot of brought up a lot of strife in my heart, and then it created tension between my husband and I as we're trying to figure out who is this baby and why is he crying all the time. And so it took probably a little bit of others kind of speaking into me and saying Grace, you're not acting the way you typically do, what's going on there. And so by the time we were kind of figuring all of that out, it was about 6 or 7 months into that, or having had Tucker, we found out we were pregnant again. And we got pregnant with a 3rd boy, and we got through that pregnancy, and unfortunately at about 21 weeks we lost our son. His name was Boyd, and that just in suffering and loss really created kind of toppled on top of the postpartum depression I was already struggling with. And so we got home from the hospital after we delivered Boyd, and I could not sleep. I wasn't sleeping at night. I was just reliving all of the moments in my head, thinking about all of the what ifs, and just really just in despair with the Lord. And so with that just what we were walking through, I sought out a physician for help. I sought out counseling, and they created just a plan for me so that I could just get back up on my feet. And something that Christian, my husband, reminded me of, and that is my husband, in his field, they have to do first responder training. And he talks a lot about how when you're going to save someone, save someone, or in an emergency, you're helping someone out. They say like, don't be the second victim. And so like when you compare that to postpartum and in the depression or anxiety in that, like you need to be sure, I know this is kind of against what people say, but like you really need to be sure you're taking care of yourself first before you can go and serve your family, or you can go and help serve your husband and whatnot. And so it was important to me when he kind of brought that up. I was like, you're right. Like I am forfeiting my health to continue to take care of my kids because, I still had 2 kids to care for at that time and my husband and whatnot. And so it really reshaped my thoughts of like, yes, Grace, you do need to take care of your mental health in this because you're pouring out of an empty cup. And it became not a sign of weak faith, but that I needed to steward my health in order to better serve my church, to better serve our life group, to better serve our children. And
better what it's saying in the question, honor the
honor
Lord.
the Lord,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And just to kind of like finish that up, like if you look at the Bible, David and Elijah both struggled with despair and wrestled with that. And in 1 Kings, he's like, he flees and he's there and he's like, Lord, just take my life. Like, go ahead. And the Lord's like, nope, I'm going to let you rest. And then you're going to get up and you're going to eat and you're going to drink this water. And then you're going to go back to sleep and you're going to rest and you're going to eat and you're going to drink. And then I'm going to send you out for 40 days and 40 nights. And like that scripture was really like, okay, it's just like today might just be a day where I'm nourishing my body and I'm making sure that I'm hydrated and that if I need rest, I'm asking for help and I'm seeking out that from people around me. So
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
kind
And
of.
I heard some key parts in that I think are worth noting. One, you had people kind of call it out in you, and you heard them. So that means we have to have people close enough to us who can say those things, and we need to have ears to hear.
Yeah.
Because I do think we often accept this, I am tough, I can make it. And to be honest, young moms, we do on a lot of things. We press through hard often in those early times. So we equate pressing through this as the same, and it's not.
Yeah.
It is something that is important to deal with. It is not a failure.
Yeah.
It is a chemical reality. I also love that you said you went to see the doctor. I think that's another thing. I don't want to lessen as believers that we don't utilize the things that God has actually given us.
Yeah.
And we don't have to just muscle through it. Like when I meet with someone and they are showing signs or thinking they might be, the first question I ask is, have you seen your doctor? Have they done blood work? Because this is actually something that a physician should oversee.
Yeah.
And again, it's not failure. It's important. It's so very vital. I have a friend of mine who had a season of prolonged postpartum depression, and getting active, being outside,
Yes.
sunshine, like you said, like nourishing yourself, getting some perspective beyond that kind of day-to-day, all of the just reality that you deal with as a postpartum mother is very helpful also.
Yeah.
So I think, too, realizing that the suffering of it is real. And I think too often we as believers feel like if we're struggling, I must be failing. And now that we can, for any of us in anything that God calls us to walk through, take it and end up sinning in it.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there can't be a possibility. I'm saying that the issue itself, postpartum depression, is not. That is a chemical reaction. That is a very real thing, and it is not something that we have failed at.
Yes.
And so I think recognizing that God, in Hebrews, we know that he is the high priest who actually can minister to us in those places, and we don't have to hide them from him.
Yeah.
We actually should take them to him in that.
Yeah.
I think another thing to recognize is it doesn't always happen in a prescribed timeline, right? So I had this typical day 3 hormone rush where everything seemed weird and I cried all day. I just began to know that was happening. But at times it can happen in other seasons. Michelle, you mentioned the fact that it might have been a different timing for you. And I really think that's a great example for our women to hear.
Yeah, so for me, I didn't have it right after necessarily having a child per se. I would have little bouts of just normal after pregnancy. For me, it really came after we had our fourth. Our fourth was a surprise pregnancy, and that rocked my world. And so it really didn't happen until about a year, 2 years after having Tio, our fourth. And it just came on all of a sudden in just this bout of depression. And I did not know what was happening to my body. I was in my mid to late 30s at that point. And so I'm like, what is going on? And so just talking again, back to the doctor, and it took a while. I mean, there was a point where my husband and I got in a major fight. And it was New Year's Eve. It was the worst New Year's Eve ever because we got in a major fight. And I couldn't explain my emotions. I couldn't explain what was going on. And I really had no idea what was happening to me. And because it came so much later, I wasn't able to identify it necessarily as hormonal. And I realized finally it was after speaking with the physician. And I did get blood work, realizing that some of my vitamins and minerals were off, and once I was out of the present moment, it could last a few days at a time, and then it would come back. And when I was in a normal period, I was able to have the conversations with my husband, because he's like, "What do I do? How do I help?" And I'm like, in the moment, you don't know. I'm like, I don't know. And the exercise piece was a big piece for me. Really making my health a priority. And so every day trying to do something small, being mindful of how I started nutrition-wise with my day. And then when I would hit those moments, the biggest thing for me was I had developed strong friendships with other women, and there's 4 of us. And so we sent out an SOS prayer. And honestly, in the moment, I told my husband, I'm like, when you see me starting to hit this wall, pray for me, pray with me, pray over me. And I can't tell you the difference it truly, truly made. I mean, the Holy Spirit works in amazing ways. And when I would send out that, friends, please pray for me, and Phil would know at that point to pray for me, I mean, it took hardly any time for me to get out of that moment. And now, I don't struggle with it. And it pretty quickly after I started putting those things into practice, I was able to work my way out of that. But it came later for me.
Yeah. I love the fact that you we've addressed kind of the physical side, which is real chemical, nutrition, exercise, all of those things, seeing a doctor. But then it's also very spiritual, because there's nothing that's not that in our lives as believers. And so that is something I do want to encourage whoever's in that season, or the person who asked the question, is press into things that are on that spiritual side. Press in and have believers holding you just up in prayer and accountable on how we set our minds, even, the things we sit and dwell on in the midst of it. Have them ask good questions so that we are attuned to our own thoughts in it. Because the emotion of anything, and trust me, as a woman, all the emotions and all the hormones, it doesn't stop at having babies, and it keeps going. So I think in that, it's recognizing it's real, but then how do I address this in a way that honors the Lord? And that does include at times what I set my mind on in the midst of what my emotion wants, to calm it back down, which I think brings to probably 2 more things that just on the spiritual side that I would point out. One, we need to be abiding in the Word so that the Word is present and active, and the Holy Spirit, when He is prompting and guiding us, is guiding us into truth that we are readily putting ourselves under the teaching of. So don't neglect, even when those babies are itty bitty, don't neglect the intake of the Word. It could be listening to it. I used to listen to sermons while I nursed. And I had Bibles open in the kitchen and devotionals open in the bathroom, because those were my only times I stopped. But I knew I had to intake something just to feed my soul as I was pouring out so significantly. And then remember that our church does have soul care too. And it again is not failing to ask for help.
Yes.
That is what the body is here for. And talk to your life group leader, get that chain up through those leaderships to get into a type of soul care and triage, maybe freedom groups. There's a lot of things offered here too.
Yeah.
So any other advice you guys have on that?
I was just going
side?
to add to what Michelle said, like inviting your husband into that space, because I think so often as women, we in the home can be like, I've got this, I've got all these things. We can kind of have like a tick list of things. And it is so important to bring your husband into these moments, because when he is there to help us, and he is there to guide, be the leader in that. And that could look, in a multitude of ways. And sometimes we joke in our house that Christian's like, have you had water today? Because he can kind of tell when I'm, not feeling myself that day. And it can, and just really open up, make sure you're opening up to your husband and bringing him into that conversation.
And that's key, because so much of motherhood, especially at the beginning, you are the one carrying the baby and giving birth and nursing the baby or feeding it, however you
and feeling all the feelings.
And feeling all the feelings. And so sometimes the husband just feels at a loss, like, what do I do in those moments? And they want to come alongside and they want to be of help.
Yeah.
And so allowing them to
and
do
that lays the groundwork, because it's going to be next things at the next stage, and you're going to need to walk it together. So begin it early and begin it in the things that seem like, well, this is very personal, but you're one. He should know all the personal, right? He should be in on all those things and lay the groundwork of transparency and needing him, so he doesn't feel superfluous in that, because we do. And we need the Lord in it. So love that. Okay, let's transition. Next question. So this is now part of the reason I actually invited both of you is because of the boy thing. I have a question about, I'd love tips for parenting boys, especially how to connect with them as they get older. So we have 3 boys, 4 boys, and 2 boys represented here.
So many boys.
So many boys.
We
so
love
much
our
stink.
boys. Yes.
I love being a mom of boys. It is so very fun.
Yes.
Michelle, why don't you start and give some thoughts on tips for parenting boys, and especially as you have ones, your top is a teenager now, and it's gonna go fast and furious now.
Yeah, and it goes through stages, right? When they were little, it was so hard, and just, I think the biggest thing as I was reflecting on this question is really laying the groundwork when they're young of engaging with them, and when they are little. And if you have a lot when they're little, so many little at the same time, it can be exhausting. And we'll talk about that later. But I think laying the groundwork of just stepping into different activities that they are involved in, and not being afraid to learn new things. Like for my boys right now, it's Minecraft. The world of Minecraft, I try to deflect my husband as much as possible, but they make believe Minecraft, and they're shooting me in the house, and I engage in that. So that's kind of for my middle boys right now. And for my older son, sports is a big part of our home. They all play baseball, and they're starting to engage in different sports on top of that as well. And so it's participating in those, going out, not being afraid to go out to the yard and, play ball with them or shoot hoops or whatever it is. I find that physical engagement with boys in particular is one of the best ways that we have learned to connect with them. They're not very my oldest is not a conversational kid. He doesn't want me asking him all the questions. And I think being mindful of that, and showing them respect through that is really important. I think my mother-in-law has done this well with her kids as they've gotten older, especially. My husband, she will, we don't live in town with them, and she will ask to have coffee once a year is all she asks, and that's her way of just engaging with them. And so I think there's so many little ways to build that connection. Finding, for another one, it's snuggling on the couch. I have a snuggler, and it's reading with them. It's just all those little things that add up and build those connections.
I love that. So Grace, you're still in the littles side of it, but
Yeah.
you're at the, Michelle brought up a point that is actually one that I was going to make too, is where you're going to go start, like where you want to end up.
Yeah.
Like imagine you where I'm at, where you've just sent them off to college and you want that relationship of what that is. You have, where do you start so that that happens, right? So you're in the starting
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
things that you're cultivating now
Yeah.
with your little guys?
I mean, kind of like what Michelle was talking about, like getting, like for me, it's being intentional about my time with them. I think about my oldest, Carson, and I heard someone say this at one point, like boys, you connect with them shoulder to shoulder. And so like right now with Carson, it's sitting down at the kitchen table and it's doing Legos with him and building, even though like that kid can build a Lego and I have not a creative bone in my body with that. And so, but he still, like I can see his face light up when like mama sits down at the table and builds Legos with him. And like with Tucker, it is wrestling, it is being active, it is, and as much as it is important for the husband or the father to be involved in, you know, spending time with them, it's also important, you know, for the mom to be the one that is kind of setting the groundwork in their heart. And that for us looks like you said, snuggling on the couch and reading a book, or we try to do like kind of one-off dates with our boys. And so like if I'm going to the grocery store, even though it's not exciting, Carson gets really excited that he gets to spend one-on-one time with mama, and usually that ends in like a slushie at Sonic, or it's something else where like we get to just have that kind of intentional time with each other. And so what I would say for the littles, even though with boys, it is wild and it's crazy and it's physical. It's trying to find little pockets of time where you can be intentional one-on-one and modeling that like, no, like this is, I'm going to spend time with Tucker right now. Like you can go, you know, do your Legos in your room or whatever. 'Cause that shows that like, it's easy for the boys to just kind of be grouped together.
Yes.
And so finding those moments where I can grab one of them for just one thing is important. So
Yeah. And that's something to continue. Like that is one
Yeah.
of those start so that you will end in a certain place. Because I would say that's true. I mean, I have identical twin boys.
Yeah.
So they definitely come in a package,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it matters when I just go with one and, you know, take a drive where it's just the two of us, and or go have a meal, just the two of
Yeah.
us. So it's it is one of those things you have to decide to do, because
yes.
you know, in the course and the busyness of life, it's so much easier to grab everybody and to just kind of have a generalized parenting moment versus individual.
Yeah.
It's okay to have the generalized also. You know, it is good to develop things that are group talk. And I'm a question asker. So I buy all these like sets of questions, and we have them at our table over the years. And if we're driving in the car, I pull up my phone. Recently we were on a long drive, and everyone in the car had to find their own list, and everyone had to ask questions. And what I love about normalizing question asking is it isn't just if there's something wrong, I'm going to ask them questions. And then, I'm on the hot seat. It's, this is normal in our home.
Yeah.
Mom asks questions.
Yeah.
Mom
Yeah.
wants better conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's simple ones. Like at the end of the day, I tended to not say, was the day good?
Yeah.
Because they were always like, man, it was boring.
Yeah.
I would say, what was something interesting that
Yes.
happened? Because
Yeah.
interesting can be bad. It can be
Yeah.
good. It can be
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
So tell me one interesting thing.
Yeah.
And then it was then at the dinner table. And what allowed me to do was at times throw in an apologetics question, something about theology, something a little bit about where do you think you'll go on this? What do you think by the age of my kids, what do you think your stance on fill in the blank will be when you are an adult? But it's just, I've normalized it a bit. I do think shoulder to shoulder is a huge thing. I actually think that's for all teenagers.
Yeah.
But especially boys. So car rides, walks, sitting by each other at a meal, those kind of things where you can ask the question and they can look somewhere else as they're processing, and they don't have to look you straight in the eye. It's huge, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not. I also do teach my kids how to have eye contact, because I do want them to be able to interact as an adult with other people.
Right.
But that doesn't have to be those moments.
Right.
That can be other moments. And I think that's important. One of the things for my gang is years ago, Brian and I were at a conference or get together of sorts, and someone said something about being the Kool-Aid house, and he explained the fact that when he was growing up, none of his friends drank Kool-Aid, but his mom made Kool-Aid. And so everybody wanted to come to his house because they could actually get real Kool-Aid with real sugar. And so I looked at Brian, and our kids were little at that point. I'm like, we are going to be the Kool-Aid house. And I just decided it. Like, so when they want to get together, and it's not like I give them anything they want. I'm not saying that. I'm also a very trusted house. Like, we watch good movies and good things happen. But I'll make anything they want. They can have pretty unlimited fun things. And if they want to hang out, I'll make it happen. I'm a very quick yes for hangouts. And so then parents begin to trust you. Then the beauty is in this whole, as they get older, once they get their driver's license, ladies, everything changes because then they go where they want. And it shows. And so if your house isn't the Kool-Aid house, they will not go there. They will go to other places. And so you have to start early by inviting friends over, inviting them in, being the mom that cooks well and does the things, because then those guys who have driver's license, they want to come over and hang out at your house. And it isn't always, and that I have lovely friendships with all the moms of the other guys. And so that's wonderful. Like, I love for them to go there too. But if I have a choice, I'm going to try. Come hang out at my house. I learn my boys better when their friends are over, because what they're talking about, I'm just like a little fly on the wall. And I mean, they're just amazing humans, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of. So it is work, but it's worth it.
It is.
So, and I think just keeping lines of communications open. I think with boys in general, you have to tell them a little bit more of this is why we're doing this, so that they don't just think it's arbitrary. So for my boys, I've had to give a little bit of like, now that you're not living at home, this is what communication with home looks like. And you get to define this part of it. I'm not going to tell you when and how, but I want you to know this is the easiest avenue. And so that they're not floundering and figuring it out on their own. They're guys. They're going to just be in the moment and do what they're going to do. And so sometimes we just have to help a little bit of like, hey, this might be a good idea. Here's some advice. I want you to work this out on your own. And you give them some space to do it, because you want them to want to call you and want to connect and have those coffees as they're getting older.
Yeah, and I think with that, as moms, we can create such a space for being the emotional support for our boys, because they aren't all naturally emotional. As littles, they are very emotional. And so, they're going to go to mom usually for that emotional support before they will dad. At least that's what we have found in our home. And so capitalizing on that and utilizing that and allowing them to come to you in those moments. And then we also spoke about just that intentionality. I think also in the home, it looks like inviting them to do the things that you're doing, whether that's cooking. I've had phases of my boys being interested in that or not, but one of the things I always try to do is to invite them in, whatever it is around the house. And so I'm getting that one-on-one time with them, but I'm still getting stuff done, because as moms, we have a hard time of stopping and playing with our kids sometimes, because we have our to-do list in our head of, I have to get X, Y, Z done. And especially if you're a type A or more controlling, which I can struggle with, it can be hard to stop. And so sometimes you can still get that, you can get your things done. Laundry, hey, who wants to help me make baskets into the laundry? It's different things. Making stuff around the house fun and more game oriented can really help connect with them too.
Yeah. And even beyond connecting, we're preparing them.
Right.
I say to my kids, since they were very little, I love you to let you go.
Yeah.
And I want to prepare them. They better know how to do laundry.
Yes.
They need to know how to make a meal.
Yeah.
And my boys do. My boys can cook a full meal.
Yeah.
So it isn't just it's time together, which it is. It is also a way to love them well for who they're going to become. And I think that's key. And one last thing, and then we need to keep moving on our questions, but I think knowing their own personalities and loving them like they want to be loved, not like we want to be loved, is key too. Be the expert on your boy. Every boy is different. Twin boys. very different. And so I show my love and articulate things in different ways because they both have different love languages from each other. So I think that's another piece, is just really be a student of your boys, and it will morph and change over time. So what you've done and what worked when they were 12 will not work when they're 18. And, you know, just be willing to be humble enough to learn and go along with how God builds them up into the men we want them to be someday. So, it's good. Okay. So there's a nuance to this, and that's advice for navigating parenting of older teens and young adults. So, just jumping into that, the tricky thing is I'm the only one that really this applies to.
Yeah.
So you guys have experienced it in what you've observed about other people, and clearly maybe, you know, yourself or your spouse, but I would just give a couple things on this. This obviously includes girls too, then not just a boy mindset. That idea of love you to let you go is actually, I think, very key. The first time I said it, they literally cried because they were like, why are you kicking us out of the house? And like the same boys that once upon a time were like, I with you, and everywhere I went, trust me, they walked toward their dorm just fine. And part of it was they were so ready. And it's heart-wrenching in pieces, and so like I did my job in others. You know, like there is true joy in seeing God having worked out what was his design. His design isn't for them to stay in my nest. His design is for them to become men of God on mission. That can't fully happen as long as they're home. And so you have to literally say it to them, because you're saying it to yourself at the same time. So that means when there is a missions trip, I say yes, because I want them to feel what it feels like to get on an airplane without us and go and do something and be under some young adults that I love and I hope are watching out for my child enough, right? Camp, same thing. Like I love these leaders, but they're not me. And the mom heart and mind can be like, no, that is a little too scary. But we have to. We have to have those moments wisely where we put them in places where it's beyond our control, because then it's illustrating, first and foremost, to them, I trust you. You're ready. But most importantly, it illustrates, I trust God. Because you're no more protected with me than you are in Salt Lake City on that missions trip, or at Cedarville, or wherever they might go, because God's in control there too. And it allows them that assurance that they don't have to have me to feel safe. They need to have God to feel safe. And so I think there is a developing of that to navigate. And what it does is it allows you to very gently open your hand and enjoy them as they're becoming who God makes them to be, instead of controlling them. I actually asked this question of Karis, who is my 22-year-old. And I said, what things would you say have been good as you were like now fully, like she has a job. She's actually just worked nights at the hospital last night. And she said, you let me be me. And so we don't do that perfectly. No parents do it perfectly. But the idea that, you know, if that's what she wants to go into, I'm going to support her. I'm going to advise her, but I'm going to also let her start making some of her own decisions and not micromanage those things. So.
Can I ask, what does that look like practically when they're younger? Like, we can talk about when they're teens, like letting them, you know, do these different things, but like to the moms that are younger, what are some ways that we can start now to like let it, like little ways that we can, either that's like the nursery or, you know, what has that looked like for you guys?
So I'd say with that, and then Michelle, you can add your thoughts too. I think there's two ways to look at it. One is like practical things you actually do, like the putting them into childcare. It's tricky. Like you're entrusting them. They're you know, they're vetted. They're amazing volunteers, but it's still not you. And you know, leaving and having date nights, prioritizing your marriage, having those moments that you're willing to be gone, letting your husband just take, because we think we know better, honestly, a lot of times. And instead of giving him a whole list, you go parent, and I'm going to go do this thing that I need to do. I think I always sent my kids to preschool, even though I homeschooled for a while. I did preschool because I wanted them to go and learn from what someone else learn authority. And then from there, I just stair-stepped it. So we did day camps. Then by third grade, we did overnight camps and shorter. And then by middle school, they were doing the full week type camps. Camps, man alive, it tests your heart as a mom. It really does. I mean, I've had kids injured at camp. You know, like you just have to trust the Lord on it, because they're going to go and be crazy and have fun and have the best memories. And then, you know, it is mission trips and things like that. I think the second thing I would add is look at how you're doing what you're doing. So at the beginning, it's your kid watches you and you do everything, right? You feed them, you literally spoon it. The second stage is then you're helping the kid and you're together on it. So they're eating, you're cleaning up, you're prepping the meal. The third stage is you're watching and letting them do it, right?
Yeah.
And then the fourth stage is you're not there at all.
Yeah.
And so you have to logically do that on multiple things.
Yeah.
So I do that with my kids with laundry, with food, with picking up their room, where I do it, they learn, we do it together, I watch them, they're on their own. So that you are strategically stepping back, not in everything. I mean, I'm still their mom, I'm not giving up that role, but I do want them to take steps.
Sure.
That way.
Yeah.
Michelle, do you have any other thoughts or things to add in that?
I think that's all really good. I think it's just the teaching them that they are capable, and that, you know, God is in it and he has a plan for each of them, and that's going to look different for each of them. And, you know, they can compare at home their path to another, how you parent one to the other, and teaching them, you know, I remember you teaching, like, you're each an individual, and I love you all, but I'm going to treat you differently based on the type of person you are and who God has created you to be.
Yeah.
And so being mindful just of that as they get older. And I love what you said about just saying yes. Saying yes to the overnights. And sometimes some of them you have to push a little bit more.
You do.
Our youngest has some anxiety, and so we've been wading through that with him, and it's just, we have to push him, and we have to just say, nope, we let him try to do it at his pace, but he always gets to some point where it's like, nope, you have to do this, and we love you, and we're going to be there for you, but you are ready and you are capable.
And for that person, it might not look like having 5 people over.
Right.
It's one.
Right.
And maybe a quieter one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's shepherding them through that. And I think in that, as you're taking those steps and you're taking the steps backward, it's also, man, this is hard. You let them make mistakes. You have to. And you have to not be the umbrella that takes away the consequence for their mistake. You let God rightly parent them also. And it, excuse me, it happens through natural consequences. It happens through things. And it's right for them to learn. A line I say a lot to my kids is maturity isn't not making mistakes. Maturity is learning from them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still learning from mistakes. I am still growing in Christ likeness. So I have no expectation that my kid is going to get it right all the time. So, it was a mistake. You didn't mean to, or maybe you did. Maybe it was a sin.
Yeah.
But maturity from that is, okay, what can we learn?
Yeah.
What can we do different?
Yeah.
And having enough relational capital that you can have those conversations where it's not a high discipline moment. It is a discipleship moment of guiding them through mistakes or issues that they're experiencing, which they will. I mean, heavens, there's a lot. And we did. I think sometimes it's doing that too.
Yeah.
Like, man, I did this when I was your age. And,
Yes.
and being transparent and letting them see, even now, I often add in, hey, listen, this is where I struggle in this. So that they understand, hey, I'm 49, but I'm still working out in the sanctification of my heart some of these things. So I think, having those constant conversations is a good thing. Which leads to a good next question, which is, I would like your thoughts on how to teach, train, and equip kids with a biblical worldview, practical ideas and encouragement in biblical truth in daily life, and how to use it for instruction, correction, and discipline. There is a lot
That's a
in
loaded
there.
question.
It is. It's a good one, though, because it is what we've already been talking about.
Yeah.
There are nuances that are flowing in all of this, right? Of going after the heart, of being intentional as moms. So what are your thoughts on how to develop a biblical worldview that is practical and things that we can do to teach that truth?
I can go.
Yeah,
I
go
think when they were little, I loved the Storybook Bible that our church uses and gives. I don't even know. Do they still give that out at
They do.
the baby
They give
dedication?
different ones. I
Okay.
think.
So I love the Storybook Bible. You know, it was reading that throughout the day, especially we still read to our boys before bedtime. And so we don't use that as much anymore as they've gotten older. But we read that constantly as they were little. And so that just helps create that biblical framework of you're reading the Bible stories. And then throughout the day, I just remember when they were little, a rainbow would come in the sky and they would have questions. And so I think the biggest thing about this is what we've talked about a little bit already is capitalizing on the everyday moments. You know, it doesn't have to be a strict, structured thing. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, we have to, you know, have forced Bible time, which is, there's place for that. And some of that is very good. And I know for boys, like we've tried to do different curriculums, and it is really hard to get them to sit down and go through curriculums. And so we have found, you know, at Christmas, we do the Jesse tree ornaments. And so that is one way that we just try to focus it more at Christmas of, you know, with all the crazy and all the busy. And so we do the ornaments, and our boys love it still at their ages. We rotate who gets to do each ornament each night.
And they're excited for
and
which
they're
one they
excited
get.
for it. And they have to now, like, we read the little blurb and they have to guess like what the picture is on it. And so it's just tying it back into what is the whole point of this? It's all about Jesus. And I think with the worldview, obviously the culture we live in, they're getting it everywhere at such a young age. And so it's speaking into the moments as they arise. And really creating just those authentic conversations. We have a lot of conversations around the dinner table as well. We also do a lot of questions, but that's when, you know, we're asking them about their day and various topics arise. And we just do our best to point it to the Bible and what does God have to say about this, and pointing it back to their relationship with their Savior. So those are just some of the little things. And then, just as they've gotten older, you know, they get to see us reading our Bible at home. And now we're getting to encourage them now that they're at the ages that they can read and start to understand. And 3 of the 4 have that personal relationship that we're encouraging them to read it on their own. And I love, you know, how the youth group has a plan, and even the kids ministry is amazing. You're getting sent the weekly emails of how to engage with what they're already learning, you know, and I love that the discipleship tools that we receive, because we are the main discipler. And so it's our job as parents to capitalize on that and to do our best at home to just engage in those conversations with them.
That's great. I like kind of what you'd said, and as a mom of young kids, you know, discipling our kids can feel really daunting because you're like, where do I have time in the day to sit down and read a storybook Bible, or to even like have a, you know, devotional time with them? And so you really have to be creative and intentional about finding those pockets during the day. And sometimes it's just altering your language of like, you know, Tucker, no, we don't throw toys. Like, we use gentle hands because Jesus teaches us that we are kind, and we, you know, we use gentle hands with other people. And so it's really just altering how we're talking throughout the day, and modeling that. And that includes like how we interact with others. Like, are they seeing us be kind to the grocery attendant? Are they seeing us, you know, be respectful of our husband? And are they seeing us repent or, you know, ask for forgiveness? Like, you know, so often I will find moments of like just losing my temper or feeling a little overstimulated by the boys, and, you know, coming down to the level and being like, Carson, I'm really sorry. Mama did not treat you well in that moment. Will you please, you know, Jesus forgives us. Will you please forgive me in this? And so it's just like having a mind shift of, yes, we have practical things that we are supposed to be doing throughout the day, changing diapers, you know, getting our kids to school and stuff. But it's also like in those moments, like practically changing how we are talking to them and how we're encouraging them.
Yeah, because worldview, we all have a worldview. Every single person, believers or non-believers, everyone sees the world through a certain viewpoint. And it's made up of experiences and interactions and things we've learned. Everyone has one. So we want them to have a fully biblical, like the entire narrative biblical. So it is one of those things that we have to understand. If it's caught, like, then we have to have it just be natural in our conversations and what we do. Because it should also be taught where we can, but realize what they will actually probably absorb best is what is caught.
Yeah.
It's the same way that when you have kids old enough to pretend house, and they start saying things, you're like, ooh, they're catching what it is to be, mom or dad, or do the things, because they it's not necessarily what I taught them, how I taught them to say something is what they're catching. So same will happen, especially in the younger years. We just decided, honestly, with 5 children, when they were little, we did the individual snuggle and tuck them in, but then once they got to an age where they could sit for a story, our bedtime routine became, we'd read. And we'd all pray together.
Yes.
And I didn't go to individual rooms.
Yeah.
We hug, kiss, and off they go. And to this day, now I have older kids. We all get together. I don't read to them anymore, but we would pray. We hug, kiss, and good night.
Yeah.
And so reading the Big Picture Story Bible, then, there's really great ones out now, like Theology is really great as they're getting older. So there's things that just, if you kind of keep investigating, they keep coming out with some really great ones of just let bedtime, you can throw in some fun ones too. Like we read some amazing, clean, sweet literature to them, just to have them sit, but then it would rotate back into something that was more theological, so that it was just a natural intake. It didn't feel forced. It was our kind of time together. And you know what? If there was a time in a season it was too busy, then we don't. Like I think people kill themselves over the expectation of that. Well, this must be what I do. We have to have dinner devotions. And maybe that works, but we've had a really hard time with it. We're the pastor's family, right? So don't put something on it that makes it almost impossible to do. Find a way that it is natural. But it does mean also prioritizing a place for it as well.
And in those busy seasons, I think it's fine, like you said, like prioritizing, like, okay, today it's going to be important to us that we just pray. Like whether that's praying in the car on the way to school, that's praying at dinner, because like they are watching you and they're catching what you're saying and what you are doing. And we had a moment last week where we're sitting at dinner and we just got to rushing because I had to get off to something. And all of a sudden we look over and Tucker, who's 2.5, is sitting there saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for Mama. Thank you, Jesus, for Daddy," and just going on. And Christian and I both look at each other and we're like, this 2-year-old is calling us out that we did not stop to pray. And so they are watching what you are doing. And so, when you have like a newborn and whatnot, and you're like in those early days, like just being like, okay, today I'm just going to invite the Lord into my day. I'm going to invite him and just sit with me in the nursery, in the rocking chair, or whatever that may be. And just, so.
Yeah. I think a few practical things to add in is, as they're getting older, you will need to give them tools to filter the society, so watching what's on devices, how they interact with that, asking good questions, being part of it. I never feel like I have to ask permission on those things. We own the phones. We own, like we're very clear. We give contracts to our kids a lot. So they have phone contracts, so that they have expectations of knowing that that's going to be part of it. And then it is, what do you do if, and letting those questions, if you've established a culture of questions, then a good thing is they can ask them too. And when we taught worldview or apologetics, one of the things that we kept hitting, and it'll be in the podcast when we cover it again, is you want your kids to ask questions. The worst thing is, they're going to ask them. You want them to ask them to you, not their friends, not Google. You want them to ask them to you. And so that means you have to be the type of place where you're not shocked by them, put off, like listen, don't overreact, ask good questions back. I love the question, how did you get there? Or what brought you to that conclusion? Because then you start understanding why they started thinking that, or maybe something they picked up at school. And then you can have a good conversation that leads to what does the Bible say about that? How is that reflected in Jesus? And then you can bring and keep it going and let them, and not just you talk at them, you invite them into process and think through things too. So just realizing worldview is in those little moments. It's in the, looking at nature and calling out the beauty of God, to the fact that you're going to end up with teenagers surrounded and inundated. And so start as you want to
continue. So like however you want to begin, then as they're older, hopefully you're having those deeper question asking conversations too that are natural as you're, doing that. And I'd say one more thing is point out when you see God doing something in their life.
Yeah.
Like especially obviously once they're believers that we're talking about, but I see God doing this so that they understand this is a spiritual thing and you are guiding them and they are growing and changing.
Yes.
So that's also a good thing as a parent.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Our next question turns a little and can at times be a little controversial. But we're not going to let it be. How do we biblically deal with public schools or private schools that our kids are attending? So the whole schooling thing is a real thing. I'd say before anything else, just a reminder, there is no perfect school.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because I was a homeschool mom and that was not a perfect school and I was the teacher, right? Because I'm bringing imperfection to it.
Yeah.
And so I think should be a graciousness that surrounds this topic.
Yeah.
In understanding, you alluded to our saying it's, we love our children equally, but we treat them uniquely. So even within our home, what we decide about school, how we interact with school is very individual. So our line for that is each kid, each year.
Yeah.
We genuinely, there is no perfect place. And so we have to know that we're the primary disciplers. We are partnering with whatever level we do. And there are pros and cons every single place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on biblically dealing with a public school or private school that your kids are attending?
Go ahead.
Well, our oldest just started kindergarten, like I think we're 14 or 15 days in. So this is like a very fresh decision for us. And I struggled with what to do. I felt like the right thing, it seemed like, was to homeschool because that's what a lot of people in my circle do. And so I really had to wrestle with like, what is right for not only our family in this season, but also like for Carson individually. And as we kind of got through this past year, it was made very clear to me that Carson needs structure and he needs people outside of our home to be speaking into him and to be guiding him and to be loving him. And that was not mommy. And so he goes to our local public school, and so far he's doing great. And I would just encourage the moms that are kind of dealing with the weight of that, of like, God is sovereign and he is present wherever you send your kids, whether that's the public school or that's the private school or even a co-op. Like, God will meet your child where he or she is going to be. And I feel like once I kind of recognized that kind of gave me the freedom and like the relief of like, okay, God has him. If I trust that, what God says he will do in scripture, that I can trust that where he goes to school or where he's around, that God will be there too. So.
Yeah. And I think as parents, we feel pressure as they're entering kindergarten to make the decision and think it's going to be the final decision.
Like it's a train you can't get off of.
Yeah. Well, we are a testament of that is not true because we have been to like every school imaginable in Hamilton County, I feel like. We've tried them all.
Us too.
We've done public school. COVID year, some of our kids did homeschool. We've done a variety of private schools. We've done hybrid schools. We've done very non-traditional schools. And our kids are tired of trying all the schools. But to be honest, it was each year and what does each kid need? And certain schools were great for a season, and then we needed to pivot for various reasons. Sometimes it was, emotional needs of our kids, and sometimes it was academic needs of our kids. And our kids are our oldest is at one school and the other three are at a different school. And so we have just embraced each year, just praying through each year. There's not a right or wrong. And I feel like that's the struggle of it has to be one thing or another. If we're believers, we have to, know about the public school. And there are things you have to be aware of.
Sure.
especially in today's culture. And I think it's just engaging in those conversations. But to be honest, it doesn't matter if your kid goes to a public or a private school. There are non-believers at private Christian schools as well.
Very much.
And so your kids are still going to be exposed to things. And I think the most important is being aware of what is the school teaching, and not being afraid to stand up and have conversations with the teachers, and expressing, I remember last year our boys went to a public charter school, and we got home an email of things that they were going to be learning that were not biblical. And so we sent an email to the teachers, letting them know our perspective. But then we had the conversations with our kids of, this is what your school is going to teach, but what does it look like from a biblical perspective?
Right.
Yeah.
What do we believe
Yeah.
as Christians?
Yeah.
And so I think those are some of the main things to think about is, what does your kid need? And just engaging in those conversations is really important.
I think being in the know is a good
Yeah.
concept for both of those. You got to know your child, be the expert on them, be willing to steward that season in their life educationally. Like this, you have this year. How are you going to steward it? That's what we're called to do. We are given these kids, and we're helping them make decisions they can't necessarily make on their own based on what we can see and identify in their life. So at times for us, we have had kids in different school systems often, because what was educationally beneficial for one was someplace different, and we needed to make a change, and that was appropriate. And I can tell you on the backside, I've asked the kids, did I harm you in this? Did we each kid each year, has this been detrimental? And they would all say no. Like the way we did it was intentional, and we were clear of why. Like, don't make why a mystery to your kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, explain, talk through it, and start talking through it like in March, so that you're processing it together about the next year of where things are at. Is this still the right choice? And, so be in the know on them, and then be on the know in the school.
Yeah.
So do know the curriculum, do know the teachers.
Yeah.
As long as you can, especially when you have littles, show up and be there.
Yeah.
There is a point you stop being invited, just telling you. Like, once they get to high school, they're like, okay, see you at, whatever night you're invited to as a big group, but you're not individually at parties.
Yeah.
You're not doing any of the things. But
Yeah.
when they're having those or field trips, I was at every single one, because I wanted to know the teacher.
Yeah.
I wanted to know the faces of the kids and hear how they interacted.
Yes.
And I wanted to be with my child too, but I was knowing the system by
Yeah.
being there as long as I
Yeah.
could and as
Yeah.
much as I could. I will say we are slow to email and connect with teachers in negative situations. So part of what we do with our kids is, when there's an issue, we encourage them to deal with it first. We walk through how to do that. We tell them, even timing, like stay
Yeah.
after class or write this email. We might even help them do that. But we push hard for you engage first.
Yes.
You be the
Yeah.
one to have the conversation, because I do feel like it's the right order first,
Yeah.
having been a teacher.
Yes.
But I'm growing my kids. I'm loving them to let them go.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to do those things.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot for us to get to an email or a phone conversation.
Yeah.
And if it is, we're now at level like we have to have this conversation. And because then I don't want everything, all the molehills, to feel like mountains, because then when it is a mountain, no one cares. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So pick your battles wisely and press in on the right things. So when Jocelyn, we put her into public school for her junior year, and we were helping her select her classes, and for some reason we thought Earth and Space was a great idea. Literally, as soon as she started, I'm like, the whole thing's evolution. The whole thing. What were we thinking? And so we had to guide her on, okay, they're expecting this answer for this paper. How are you going to write it, Jocelyn? And let her process.
Yeah.
Is she going to risk her grade?
Yeah.
And walk her through
Yeah.
those things. I
Yeah.
didn't tell her she had to.
Yeah.
I walked her through. This is what's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what they're expecting.
Yeah.
What is your choice? And let's just process it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there's just in that kind of bouncing off that is like, there's this, I would consider it a lie that a lot of parents put out of like, well, I'm sending my kids to public school because they're going to be a light in their school and they're going to be almost like little missionaries. And I feel very strongly against that. Like when we decided to send our kids to public school or to, Carson, like he is there to get a education. He is not there to be a missionary and his friends. Now, he can show that in the way that he treats others, in the way he is kind, in the way that he, speaks of others and how he, treats his teacher and stuff, but we're not sending him out to be on the mission field in his school. And I think so often I hear that from moms of like, well, I'm doing this because this, or I don't want to do this because this is this and that. And in reality, like what we're discipling them at home will in turn, pour out into how they treat others at school. And so I think just being clear too of like, why are you at school? You're at school to get an education, to learn. And that is why, we're sending you there. So.
And I think it's okay to be missional in how you approach
Sure.
it, however, because all of what we do in life should be.
Yes.
We don't actually segment parts that doesn't qualify as any mission. Everything is mission. My grocery store run is mission.
Right. Yes.
I think what you're speaking to is not putting additional pressure on kids who are still learning and still young enough that might not have the capability yet to articulate their faith. But as they're growing, by the time Jocelyn's going to her junior year, I should hope she would be able to articulate her faith.
Sure. Yeah.
And that should be something. I did public school for 7th grade through my senior year, and it was a large public school. I needed to have some, or else it begins to be self-centered versus Christ-centered. So I think it is giving a balance on those things, not maybe putting too much pressure on them, but keeping it still as this is life, though. As a believer, we don't actually segment anything that's off the table for mission.
Yeah.
All right, so ladies, we are pushing our time. So we're going to give just a real quick answer on 2 more questions. All right. So one is about prodigals, and it also involves a nuance of adult children. So how do I love my prodigal child who has strayed away from God's teaching? And then also with that, when my adult child is making their own choices about church and life decisions that aren't what I would want for them or raise them, how can I stay faithful and hopeful without compromising the truth? So let's kind of bullet point some things on this answer, and then I want to do one more before our time is up. So what are some thoughts do you guys have?
Just a couple things of never compromising truth when those prodigal children, but always, but never withhold love from them. And so we're always being truthful about what Scripture said, what God teaches us, but also always being loving and being inviting in them. When you look at the prodigal son in Scripture, the father never withheld love but he never withheld honesty with him. And when he came back running, he embraced him first. He did not shame him or, point fingers at him. And so with those children, I think just really, loving them, but never compromising what God says.
Yeah.
So.
And a practical way to say something like that is, I don't agree with your choice, but I'm always here for you and I will always love you.
Yeah.
I think we have to articulate that love and acceptance are 2 different things. I will love you. I would die for you, but I will not accept this, fill in the category in today's world, as something that is honoring to the Lord or okay or even best for you. And because I love you, I cannot accept this piece. However, I am here for you.
Yeah.
And that I'm going to continue at it. I'm never going to give up.
Yeah.
I'll always be here.
Yeah.
I think they need to hear those things.
Yeah.
When my kids were really little, I would set them on my lap and I'd say the worst thing that you could ever do. And they would list off at that point it's punch my brother or something, but I'd encourage them to get to murder someone, something.
Yeah.
Would that make me love you less? And they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, no, I cannot love you less.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love you completely and unconditionally.
Yeah.
But then here's the thing, because as believers, we kind of believe the opposite is in fact true.
Yeah.
So then I'd say, what's the thing you would do that you think I would be the happiest about? Clean my room, always do the things. Do you think that would make me love you more? And they instantly would be like, yeah. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I cannot love you more.
Yeah.
I love you completely and
Yeah.
unconditionally.
Yeah.
And I think we have to teach our kids at the youngest age, our love is not contingent on your behavior.
Yeah.
Now, consequences might be.
Yeah.
Right.
Relational damage truly might be. And that is true with adult children. And it is true, the bigger the choices, the bigger the consequences. And some of those fall on us.
Yeah.
However, my love, it's not up for grabs.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
done,
Yeah.
decided.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's really important, setting that. We literally just had this conversation with one of my kids the other night is, we love you. We don't love your choice. And this is why, and we need to make it right. And you need to go make it right now with this person, you know, that you hurt, and setting that up. And I think one of the things is remaining hopeful.
right.
Knowing that it is God's work, it is the Holy Spirit's work, and it doesn't mean you failed as a parent raising them.
Correct.
As you know, I worked with troubled teens at a residential treatment center, and those parents struggled and they were losing hope. They're like, what have I done to mess up? And it doesn't mean you didn't make mistakes. And some, you know, did make some big mistakes, but it's pointing them to, there is still hope, and God can still turn their heart back to him
Right.
and to Jesus. And it is his story that he is writing through them. And so, you know, not to oversimplify it of pray, but you have to keep praying and remaining hopeful and gathering your tribe to continue to pray for them. And sometimes that also means setting boundaries as well, and knowing what biblical boundaries are, still loving them well, but depending on what their choices are, sometimes you have to set strong boundaries with them, and that can be really challenging. But that's sometimes one of the ways that you do love them well, is setting that for, you know, whatever time period that needs to be.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think this is a good kind of place to pull this all to a close of, I think so often things like this, adult children making choices we don't agree with, prodigal children, take it down to a toddler throwing a tantrum in the grocery store. As moms, we can pull this in and feel like I'm responsible, I'm embarrassed. Sometimes then moms isolate. Follow, not only, we believe there's right and goodness in the design for what we want with our kids, we need to follow it as moms too. Be part of the body, be honest and transparent. It's nothing to be embarrassed of. Other people will walk this with you well, and we should invite them in. So utilize life groups and freedom groups, and be in relationship with other believers who will buoy you up and you know, bear up under those things with you, because God intends to use it not only in the life of your child, but in your life, and most likely then in the life of someone else who is going to walk this path after you. And so pray with hope, because we do serve a God who can do anything. There is no one too far gone. And pray with hope even for your own heart in it too, and just continue to commit it to him. And that's in all things, right? In those beautiful moments as we parent our kids, in the hard moments when they're little, when they're grown up, we need the Lord. We need each other in the process. And this is God's work, not just ours.
Amen.
Amen.
Love that.
Love it. Well, thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. This is
Thank you.
a wonderful way to spend a few moments of talking through what a gift it is to be a mother.